Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello everybody, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So for today's episode, we're going to be talking about a singular point. We're going to be talking about something that right now a lot of Lions fans are concerned about. Right now a lot of Lions fans are wondering what's going to happen next. Not really going to beat around the bush with it. What exactly is the problem? What exactly is the issue? The issue is that as training camp is getting closer and closer, which let's call for what it is, training camp is supposed to start next week, there is one major problem that has not yet resolved itself. And the problem that I'm talking about is that Tate Ratledge has yet to be signed to a rookie deal. Now, why is this a problem? This is a problem for a couple of reasons. And why it is a problem, why the problem exists in the first place, is because currently right now, second-round draft picks are having an issue with wanting to have their contracts to be fully guaranteed or nearly fully guaranteed, just like first-round draft picks. This is a reason why a majority of the second-round draft picks from this previous draft have remained unsigned. Currently, however, there is a small ray of hope that seems to have illuminated itself as the 49ers just signed their second-round draft pick to a nearly fully guaranteed contract. So there is some hope that since the 49ers were able to get their second-round draft pick to sign a contract that was not fully guaranteed, that it might be a precursor, it might be a jumping board to get other second-round draft picks to sign their deals that are not fully guaranteed. Now, how does this have an issue? How does this have a connection with the Lions? Well, the reason why is because Tate Ratledge, our second-round draft pick, is one of those second-round draft picks that has not yet signed their contract. And this is a big deal because for the Lions, Tate Ratledge is going to be a big player for us this year and most likely going into the future. And right now, there are a lot of Lions fans that are wondering what in the thunder is going on as to why Brad Holmes and Mike Disner specifically have not been able to get Tate Ratledge to actually sign a deal. Because let's think about this here. The draft was back in February, late February, sometime in that frame. We're now in mid-July. We're talking about almost 5 months of where this has been going on, and it's like, listen, by now you would think that a contract would have materialized. By now you would think that a contract would be in place, and we wouldn't have to worry about this problem. But unfortunately, it is a problem, and it is a problem that has a number of different issues that for Lions fans they have already thought about and they already know are going to be a problem if a deal is not put in place before training camp officially starts next week. Now, what exactly are these problems? In my mind, there are several. I have 5 that are listed. There could be more. There could be some that you could put, one into another. But they're all very specific. And on top of that, they're all very crucial and important as to why this is an issue that the Lions have got to get figured out. This is something that Brad Holmes has got to get a move on. This is something that Mike Disner has got to work with Brad Holmes and Tate Ratledge to get a deal put into place. Now, what are those reasons? Well, the first reason is that if no deal is reached, it would be, if I recall correctly, I could be wrong. I do admit that I could be wrong, but by my recollection, if no deal is reached, it would be the first time under Holmes that a rookie has not signed a contract with the team before training camp has started. This would not be a good look for the Lions management. It would especially not be a good look for Brad Holmes and Mike Disner, because up until this point, again, if I recall correctly, they've been able to get their rookies to sign contracts. This has never been an issue before. And it's especially never been an issue for such a high-profile player like Tate Ratledge, who figures to be a big piece for the Detroit Lions team in the upcoming year. And the reason why this is not a good look for the management if they're unable to get a deal done is that, again, one of the things that players pay particularly close attention to is how management deals with players, how they negotiate with players. Do they play hardball? Do they play fair? Are they actually willing to give a player what they feel they are entitled to based upon their talent, based upon their past production, or based upon what other people that are in their specific little class or specific little, niche are getting? If the Lions are unable to get a contract done, this is not going to look good for Brad Holmes and Mike Disner, because it's like, listen, you've had multiple months to get a deal like this done. There should be no reason why you've not been able to get a deal done. Because let's call for what it is. Yes, it is a second-round draft pick. It is going to have more value, per se, than a 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th-round value contract. But we're not talking about a first-round contract here. We're not talking $20, $30 million here. We're talking like maybe $10 to $15 million. That's not a whole hell of a lot of money in comparison to what a first-round draft pick is going to be able to command. And again, let's understand something here. That's not $10 million per year. That's not $15 million per year. That's $10 to $15 million that is spread over a 4-year deal. So again, we're only talking about a couple of $1 million per year here. So really what the issue is whether or not the Lions feel comfortable with giving Tate Ratledge a fully guaranteed or nearly fully guaranteed contract, which I can understand why to a certain extent the Lions would be apprehensive about that, because it's like, listen, you typically only give fully guaranteed contracts to one of two types of players. Either a player that has performed so well that giving them a fully guaranteed contract or a near fully guaranteed contract is not going to cause an issue, or, again, if they're a first-round draft pick. Tate Ratledge is in neither of those two camps. So that would explain why the Lions are apprehensive and why other teams have been apprehensive to make the deal actually happen. But we have to understand something here. Even though Tate Ratledge is not a first-round draft pick, he could have very well gone in the first round. That is how talented of a player he was coming out of college. If I recall correctly, he was like, I think, the second or third best guard coming out of college for this draft class. So he definitely possesses the talent. But then the other problem is that as a second-round draft pick, even though he's not a first-round talent, at least in the fact that he wasn't drafted in the first round, this is a guy that factors in to be a starter on our offensive line. Whether that is at center or guard does not really matter. This guy is going to be a starter. That is going to most likely happen. 99% most likely going to happen. So it's like, listen, do you really want to play hardball with a guy that factors to be such a crucial piece to your team going into this season? So that's one major area where this is a problem. The second major area where this is a problem, the second crucial factor here, is that by not having a deal in place before they get to training camp, Tate Ratledge can't participate. It's not like in OTAs, it's not like in minicamp where they can sign some kind of other deal so that way, hey, they can still participate. There has to be a full contract that is actually put into place that says that the player is officially with the team, they are on the payroll, they have to have that in place, otherwise the player cannot participate. And what that means is that if Tate Ratledge is not signed and he can't participate in training camp, he is going to lose out on valuable reps, which are crucial, absolutely crucial to his rookie development. So that is a huge problem because, again, if there's one thing the Lions have definitely shown is that by developing their rookies in-house, it definitely helps them in building the franchise that they have built right now. So it would not be a particularly good look from a management standpoint, but it also would not be good for Tate Ratledge if the Lions are unable to actually put a deal in place that Tate Ratledge is comfortable with, that he feels is equal to his value, so that way he can be out on the field getting those valuable reps that will help him in his development. The third thing that's a crucial factor here is that by missing time in camp, it means that Tate Ratledge is going to have less ability to build chemistry and rapport with the team. Yes, he did have time at OTAs. He has spent time with the team also in other activities. So that's not to say he hasn't had any time or any ability to build chemistry or rapport with the team. But training camp is a completely different animal compared to minicamp, which the Lions did not have this year, or to OTAs, and especially to rookie OTAs. This is when, okay, rubber starts meeting the road. We're putting in offensive install, we're putting in defensive install, we're putting everything together to now get ready for the season. And it's especially also crucial because during the same time that you're at training camp, you're dealing with preseason games, which, oh, that's right, the Lions have an extra preseason game this year. They have the Hall of Fame game, which is at the end of this month. So by not having Tate Ratledge in camp, that would be a huge problem because he would have less ability to build that chemistry and rapport, not only with the team overall, but also specifically with the offensive line. The offensive line as a unit has to have chemistry to be able to say, okay, we have 5 guys that are able to see exactly what everybody else is seeing in terms of defensive fronts, in terms of defensive blitz packages, in terms of what the defense is trying to do to us to impact our offensive ability to play, whether it's running the ball, whether it's passing the ball. So again, that's a huge problem. And again, it's another huge problem because, as I said earlier, Tate Ratledge figures to be a prominent starter for this offensive line. Again, whether it's at guard or at center. I, again, believe it's most likely going to be at guard because I believe that they're probably going to move Glasgow to center. But either way, the point of the matter is that by not having him in camp, they're going to lose out on that. And as the days continue to build, that's more time, that's more reps that he's not going to bank. And that is a problem. The next thing that's also a big problem is that by not having Tate Ratledge also in training camp, it's going to have him lose out on gaining valuable knowledge about how the offense runs. Again, we all know that this offense that the Lions run, it's very complex. It's very deep. It has a lot of moving parts to it, which means that if you're a rookie, you do not want to be missing time from this. You want to be in camp. You want to be banking as many reps, whether it's physical reps, mental reps, whatever the case might be, as possible. And especially considering the fact that Jared Goff is the quarterback, that means that you want to be able to understand what he is seeing. You want to be able to understand what he's, trying to tell you as a quarterback, but also with the fact you have a new offensive coordinator in John Morton. John Morton, even though he had been with the Lions back in 2022, even though he does have familiarity with some of the players that are there, you want to make sure that you have a player like Tate Ratledge, who, as I said, is going to be a starter. He is going to be a prominent figure in this offense. You want to have him in camp so that way, okay, we're all on the same page. We're not a page behind. We're not a page ahead. Everybody is seeing the exact same thing that everybody else is doing. And especially considering the fact that even though John Morton said that they're not going to change a whole lot, that doesn't mean John Morton and Jared Goff aren't going to put their own little adjustments. They aren't going to put their own little twists on things. So again, having Tate Ratledge in camp would be beneficial for all parties involved. And it would help Tate Ratledge not only understand the offense as far as an overall unit, but it would also help him in being able to understand blocking assignments, understanding protection schemes. Because again, as a rookie, it is a completely different kettle of fish from the NFL level and the college level. It might not be as huge of a jump as it used to be, but again, you want to make sure that your rookies are in camp so that way they can start bridging that gap sooner rather than later. And then the final thing that's a big problem is that by not having Ratledge in camp, it means that other players are going to lose out on valuable competition. If there's one thing we know Dan Campbell and the Lions value more than anything, it's competition. They want guys to compete. Why? Because competition breeds better play. It breeds bringing out the best in your players. It makes them better. And that does not matter for offensive or defensive linemen, because think about this. If Tate Ratledge isn't there, then that means somebody else is going to have to fill in until a contract gets resolved, and then that means, okay, the defensive lineman that's across from that player is not going to be getting the same level of competition as what Tate Ratledge could provide. So it means the defensive linemen are going to lose out on getting better reps. They're going to lose out on getting better because of that competition. But it also means that since Tate Ratledge is not in camp, that means he's not going to be getting pushed by backup linemen that are going to be trying to get better and trying to push him to get better. So again, by not having a player of Tate Ratledge's stature, his prominence, his talent in camp, it hurts everybody involved. It does not do anybody any good. The only thing that it does is it ensures that Tate Ratledge doesn't get potentially injured. But that's not something we have to worry about with him. So again, it is a problem that has a multifaceted issue that literally snowballs. It has a domino effect of causing other problems. The point of the matter is that Brad Holmes and Mike Disner, they absolutely need to get Tate Ratledge signed now before training camp starts to avoid all of these potential negative side effects from actually happening. Because again, you do not want to have this as a distraction going into training camp. I don't think it would be a distraction because the Lions culture is better than that. It's actually way better than that. But the point of the matter is that what's going to become a prominent talking point until it actually happens, if they do get to training camp and it does not happen, well, when are you going to get Tate Ratledge signed? How are the contract negotiations going on? What's the issue? What's the hangup? That's going to be a prominent talking point rather than, okay, how is the team developing? How is rapport being built? How does it look like other players are performing with, the starters, the vets? That should be the focus of training camp, not a contract dispute or a contract negotiating problem that should have been solved and taken care of months ago. So again, Holmes and Disner, they need to find a way to get a deal put together in which, one, Tate Ratledge feels good about the contract as far as his value, as far as where he is, and as far as what he's going to contribute to the team. And they also need to do it so that way this talking point does not become a bigger issue. Because let's understand something here. The offensive line has received plenty of scrutiny and criticism over the offseason, and that's because, okay, let's understand something here. You weren't able to bring Kevin Zeitler back. You lost Frank Ragnow to retirement. If you now have a guy like Tate Ratledge who figures to be a big prominent starter in your offensive line and he's not in training camp banking reps, all that's going to do is it's going to bring that conversation back front and center, and the off-season criticism, the off-season scrutiny, not only from fans but from NFL analysts, it's going to get louder, it's going to get more frequent, and it's going to get more pronounced. This is a problem that Mike Disner and Brad Holmes want to desperately avoid. Otherwise, it is going to cause a headache. And I already know for some Lions fans, it's a headache that they have already had enough of and they want to get solved now. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to talk about this. I know I haven't really talked a whole lot about the rookies. I am planning on talking about that a lot more once we get to training camp, especially on their development, how they're factoring in with all the other starters, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Williams, and everybody else, especially also Hazanin. But we'll see what happens. But again, Tate Ratledge's contract problem right now, as far as getting one solved, that's front and center, and it's one that a lot of people would like to see get solved sooner rather than later. So, having said that, I hope you all enjoyed this content, and I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you did enjoy the content and you've not subscribed, I hope to gain your subscription, but I also hope that you would please make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Again, I hope everyone is having a great day. I hope you have something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.